On a subtropical island, high above a fragrant harbour, on a precipitous jungled peak, there's a natural paradise, with one hell of a view. Below, the urban jungle of Hong Kong, with its Blade Runner blocks of glass and steel.
You gotta just love this place. What a spectacular city. It's one of the world's great financial hubs, but buy or rent a house or a flat here, it'll cost you twice what it cost you in London.
Hong Kong may actually be the world's most unequal society. Wages are low, living costs high. Cheek by jowl with the glitterati, an impoverished underclass who live in SDUs, subdivided units, tiny flats that have been illegally turned into several even tinier ones.
There are probably scores of these subdivided units along this corridor alone, and across Hong Kong, 2/3 of the people who live like this are in flats that take up less room than a parking space. Sometimes there are 4 or 5 people squeezed into them. I've come to meet a man called Tony who lives in here.
So I feel very angry. Why do you...
Tony's retired and feels let down by the Beijing-backed Hong Kong government. He wanted to show us his shoebox apartment.
Try to see if you can get the camera in. Can you get in and squeeze in and just give an impression? Sorry. Oh, hang on. Be careful behind you. Okay.
Oh, hang on.
That's it. It's about the size of... The bed can only just fit in here. We've got a shelf of CDs, Tony's clothes, and then if you swing around, there's a telly, there's a window which opens into a well hole. It's pretty small, Tony, and you've been in here for 3 years?
Yes, I have. Wow. And I'm still waiting the government. I think maybe more than 5 or 6, 7 years.
His apartment used to be the kitchen of the former flat. More than half his meagre income goes on this.
And you say on your T-shirt, enjoy your life.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy your life?
No. And I have go to the hospital.
Tony's got medical problems, but has finally got himself an appointment.
Until 2021.
That's when your appointment is?
Yes,
2000. That's in 2 years' time.
For the past 5 weekends, Tony's been on pro-democracy protest marches.
Why do you go? Why?
And because I'm so angry, the government lots of money. Why don't you to help us? Only to help the businessmen and the rich people.
Last Sunday night, Hong Kongers were horrified by a vicious attack on commuters, including pro-democracy protesters, by suspected pro-Beijing triad gangsters in a place called Yuen Long. Tomorrow, Tony is going to be among tens of thousands of demonstrators attempting to reclaim Yuen Long from the triads. The planned protest has now been declared illegal by the courts, having already been banned by the police. But there's no sign tonight that the protesters are in any mood to back down. On learning of the Sunday attack in Yuen Long, this man went to help and was badly beaten himself. 5 days on, Ryan showed me his injuries.
And how long did this go on for?
Oh, I don't have a clue. At that moment, it's like forever. I would say it's the most horrible experience in my life.
I asked Ryan whether he was fearful of what tomorrow could bring.
Well, I think there's always dangers here in Hong Kong now. It's not a safe place at this moment. But I urge everyone who are going to Yuen Long to stay calm and show them our determination, show them we are not with the violence and we are not agree with the violence.
This was the scene in the arrivals hall at Hong Kong International Airport tonight. The protests against Beijing's ever-lengthening shadow here are growing, and China's patience is now wearing thin. Tomorrow's planned demo could prove explosive.
Jonathan Miller reporting. Well, earlier I spoke to Fernando Chong, a politician who opposes Hong Kong's chief executive, Carrie Lam. I asked him what politicians like himself are doing to try to bring about an end to this crisis.
We have asked to meet with the chief executive numerous times, continuously, and we've been denied continuously, while the chief executive is nowhere to be seen until protests happen, confrontation happened, people got injured, and she will come out and condemn the violence. It's been happening in the past weeks continuously like that. So it is becoming not governable because the chief executive is not there.
These protests started about the extradition bill. Carrie Lam, the chief executive, has said that extradition bill is now dead. But the protests seem to have a much wider focus now, don't they? Housing costs, living standards, democracy.
True. We've gone beyond the extradition bill, although the original demands are still there. Now, but it's already too clear to the people of Hong Kong that the Hong Kong SAR government is not accountable or responsible to the people of Hong Kong. They are rather answerable to the Beijing regime. And yet, with all this crisis happening, our systems are falling into pieces. Nobody is listening to the government. They don't trust them, even within the government.
What must happen to resolve this situation before lives are lost?
I think Carrie Lam has to step down. She has to step down. The whole government has to go through an overhaul. The Executive Council, the cabinet members, all the ministers, they all have to go from the scratch. We have to build from scratch. We have to replace the current government. The problem is Beijing does not allow that to happen. So we are going in a spiral downward.
The protesters also have to play their part in ensuring that this doesn't escalate.
Well, it is, yes, sure, yes. But one cannot control 100% of the protesters. There is always a smaller number, perhaps a very small number of protesters who would not give up, who would resort to more violent means. And this has been escalating and escalating. So we're afraid that tomorrow we will be looking at a higher level of violence happening. Someone has to stop it, and the only person who can stop it is Carrie Lam.